Hello everyone, Colin Canet here for Woodwork Web. Today we're going to make a circle jig for my little bandsaw. The way most circle jigs work is there's some sort of a platform that comes out from the table of the bandsaw, and a lot of them have holes every inch or every half inch, and for a lot of things that's good, but for what I need, I like to be a little bit more accurate, so I want something that's going to be sort of variable that I can set at a specific distance to the blade. So the first thing I'm going to need to do is to make a split platform here, and I've got a couple of pieces of MDF that'll be just perfect for that. Now I've decided that I'm going to make my jig about 24 inches long. That means I'll be able to make a radius of 24 inches, so that's a 4-foot diameter. That's pretty big. The width of my table, my bandsaw table, is 14 inches. So what it means on this MDF that I'm going to need to cut this down just a little bit. But the first thing I'm going to do is take this over to the sliding miter and we'll cut a couple of 24-inch lengths, and then we'll take it to the table saw and we'll trim it down, make sure it's absolutely parallel, and then we'll start a bit of a glue up. Okay, all I need to do is put a little bit of glue on there. Okay, that'll allow us to keep on moving ahead. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to countersink these, and when I come back, we'll drill that in place. And I put a couple of clamps in here to make sure that this doesn't move around on us. Normally I wouldn't put so many holes in, but because I'm screwing into MDF here, I want to make sure that it's got good grip all the way across there. Well, you never know what happens when the camera's going to go off. Things change sometimes, so let me tell you what happened. I was going to put some T-nuts on either side here so that I could put a board underneath and use it to clamp this on top. But here's what happened. When I tried to align this on the table on the bandsaw, what I discovered is the bandsaw blade is not in the middle, it's much to the front. So when I tried to align this, my MDF stuck out quite a bit on one side and almost nothing on the back side. So I couldn't really put a T-nut on there, so I had to come up with another idea, and I just kind of got working at it. But the solution works great. So what I've done is, you see these blocks of wood here, they're actually stoppers, so that when I lift the saw off, that's what it looks like, and it can stop. So I can just clamp that, and I'll show you how that works. But the other thing that I put on off camera, and it's pretty simple stuff, I just used a couple of brackets. There was already one on the bottom of the bandsaw, so that even works. So now to put the bandsaw accessory fence on, I line up the miter slot, move it to the end. And here I'll just attach, I'll keep the leg off it when I'm not using it. And then I'll just put a clamp in there and clamp that to the edge of the table, and it's perfect. It's good and solid. What we need to do now is we need to drill, or we need to route out, and I'm actually going to use the table saw to do this, as a place where we can put a miter, part of a miter slot in there, and that will be the fully adjustable one. So let's go over to the table saw and get working on that part of it. Here I am at the table saw, and I've cut a little piece of miter slot material, the same as I used here, and it's going to want to fit underneath or in the where the slot of this table is, because the screw that moves it will be on the top side here. So what I want to do, I've already set the height of the blade at the height of my material, but I want to make sure that it's centered in this slot. And because these pieces of wood are exactly the same width, and that's why I did it this way, is I'll be able to run it through one side, then I can take it out, turn it around, and run it through the other side. Now that probably won't be the right size. I'll probably have to readjust the fence because I want to make this fit in there just perfectly. So it's probably going to take a few runs at this. There we go, and there's that slot, and our plastic moves nice and freely in there. That's perfect. That's exactly what we want. Now the next thing we need to do is drill a hole in there, and we're going to insert a T-nut in there. Okay, I've just taken a moment to set up a temporary fence, and I've put a pilot hole in my plastic that I want to drill, and I very carefully aligned this up. And when you use a fence like this, your pieces usually can't flip around on you, but this is such a small piece. I'm just going to hold it with another piece of wood here, and that should stop it from moving around. There's that T-nut with the plastic underneath it. And these little tangs that are on here are for driving these into wood. And it's not going to drive into plastic very well at all. So what I'm going to do off camera, I'm just going to file down all of these nubs so that there's just a little bit sticking out that I can then use to hammer this into the plastic. There we go. And there you can see the bolt coming through. Now that will be my center point. And because I can move this anywhere now, I can have any size diameter that I want. Now, the nice thing with this too is if I'm using 3/4 inch material, if I turn this on the side, you'll be able to see it doesn't stick out that far. So if I'm using 3/4 inch material, I can drill just a tiny hole and it won't go all the way through the wood, but it'll still give me a good pivot point. So it's just a perfect size for this. So let's go ahead and put this on the bandsaw. Well, I must say I'm pretty happy with the way this is working out. Sometimes you do these things, you never know whether they're going to work out or not. And of course everybody's got a different bandsaw. There we go, and that'll slide up to the stop. Perfect. And that's held in there right now. I'll just put my piece in here, and we'll make sure that that's nice and sturdy, and we'll be able to do a cut here. I'll just take a second and make sure this is lined up. There we go, and that's fastened down nicely, and I used a clamp. Remember I said I would clamp that on there, and that's nice and sturdy on that bandsaw. And that pivot will move back and forth. And remember, we left that piece of wood off here, and I can move that right underneath there, so I can move it all the way right out to the end, and I can still tighten it down all the way along. Well, we're ready to get started and try out our circle jig. So what I've done, I've got this piece of plywood that I've cut, and I put an X in the middle and drilled a hole. And what I'm going to do now is align the hole with the bolt. There it is right there. Then I'm going to I'm going to loosen it up and just butt that right up to the blade and just push it just a little bit. And that should give us, and I can tighten it down there. And now we're ready to get started. Well, and there we are. There's our circle. Now, if you were watching this, you'll notice there's a couple of little flat spots along here where the hole might have been not quite perfectly in the center. And I could redo this and cut that off, but in this case, that little flat spot isn't going to make any difference for what I'm going to use it for. So that's perfect. That works well, and it's nice and sturdy on there. It doesn't flop around. It's completely adjustable. Works really well. If you need to make circles on your bandsaw, this is a great little jig. Well, that concludes my video on making the little circle jig for the bandsaw. I have to say I'm really pleased the way this worked out. It does an exceedingly good job, so I know I'll get lots of use out of it. I also know that your bandsaw is probably not going to be exactly the same, so you'll have to make some adjustments and modifications that will suit your bandsaw and your purposes. But now that you know the principles of how this particular jig works, I'm sure you'll be able to make one at least as well. I'm Colin Kinnett for Woodwork Web. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned because we've got lots more videos coming.